So, you'd like to get straight on brackets, hyphens and dashes. Great! Well, let's see how clued into this area you are. I've got 3 exercises I'd like you to complete. Work through these quickly, and this should give me a good idea of your strengths and weaknesses. Then I'll know what to focus on. As you can see on my screen here, there are 4 sentences. What I want you to do is drag the checks to the sentences which use brackets correctly and the X's to the sentences which do not. When you've finished, click Done. OK, thank you. Now try this. Read these sentences and decide where you think the hyphens should go by clicking on that place. When you've finished, click Done. OK, thanks. Finally, what I want you to do is drag the dash to where you think it should go in these sentences. When you've finished, click Done. OK, that's great, thank you. What that little diagnosis tells me is that we should focus on the sections on my menu here, which are highlighted in blue. You can, of course, click on any section, but these seem to be the sections that you need to focus on most. So let's start with the first highlighted item on the menu. So let's get clear on hyphens. So, let's get going. What are brackets? Well, brackets are those sets of curved lines that you often see around words in sentences. But what are brackets for? Well, brackets are placed around information in a sentence in order to separate or bracket it from the rest of the sentence. It is almost as if the information within the brackets is additional or extra to requirements. If you take away the brackets, the sentence should still make full sense. In this case, the words in brackets on page 15 provide additional information on top of the main point of the sentence, which is that the passage is all about punctuation. And speaking of punctuation, the thing to remember is that when you put brackets around a clause or phrase within a sentence, then any punctuation marks go outside the brackets. If the brackets come at the end of the sentence, for example, then the period should be outside the brackets. It ends the entire sentence, not just the information inside.
Yee-haw!
But if the brackets enclose an entire sentence, then the punctuation goes inside the brackets, because the brackets enclose all the information. Hopefully that makes sense. But to make sure you understand and remember what I want you to do, drag the check to the sentences which you think use brackets correctly and the X to the sentences which do not. When you've finished, click Done. Yes! Well done! That's right! The first two examples are correct, because the statement in brackets is separate from the initial facts around it. The sentence makes sense if the information in the brackets is taken away. In the first sentence, the writer gives us extra information about the boots, which explains why they were expensive. In the second sentence, we are given extra information about using brackets within the brackets. Again, if you took this information away, the sentence would still be intact. The second two sentences, however, are incorrect. The brackets are placed around only a part of the extra information, and so the sentences are confusing. If you were to take away the bracketed words, the sentence would not make sense, and this is a sure sign that brackets have not been used correctly within a sentence. OK, so let's move on. So let's get clear on hyphens. What is a hyphen? Well, hyphens are those short horizontal lines. They're shorter than dashes, usually about half as long. And so what are they for? Well, they're used to join two or more words in order to show that they should be read as one. They create compound words. In this example of on-the-spot finds, on the spot is a compound adjective to describe the finds. Without the hyphen, there are three separate words, and the meaning of the expression is different. Larger numbers should always have a hyphen. For example, 25. The hyphen joins a 20 and a 5 to make one idea. I hope that's clear, so let's see if you understand. Put in the hyphens by clicking in the correct places. When you've finished, click Done. No, I'm afraid you haven't quite got that right. Hyphens join ideas to make them into compound words. Numbers such as 43 need hyphens, or they represent two separate numbers, 40 and 3. The dog in example 2 should be house-trained. If you look at the sentence without a hyphen, is the new dog house-trained? We have an adjective, new, and two nouns, dog and house, which is very confusing. Joining house and trained makes a new compound adjective, house-trained. In example 3, again there is confusion. Is the boy a football? Is he mad? If we make a compound adjective, football mad, to describe the boy, then the meaning is clear. In example 4, we need to make a compound adjective, clean-shaven, to describe the man. Otherwise, he is just not dirty and has had a shave recently. which is not what the writer meant to communicate. Let's see if you now understand what I'm getting at. Answer the questions on screen by clicking on the correct example. When you're finished, click Done. No, I'm afraid you haven't quite got that right. A handful of $10 bills. The 10 is an adjective and describes the dollar bills, so there are only 10 of them. A handful of $10 bills. $10 is the adjective describing the bills. They are individual bills to the value of $10 each, and, as they are in the plural, there must be at least $20 worth. 5-month-old dogs. The word 5 is an adjective and describes the month-old dogs, i.e. they are a month old. We know, therefore, there are specifically 5 of them. 5-month-old dogs. 5-month-old is the compound adjective that describes their age only. This simply describes dogs. So let's move on. So let's get clear on dashes. What is a dash? Well, dashes are those shortish horizontal lines that you often see within sentences. They look like hyphens, but they're usually about twice as long. Sometimes you see dashes by themselves and sometimes in pairs. So, what are they for? Well, single dashes are often used within sentences to indicate that a kind of explanation or an added thought is to follow. For example, the manager had plans to save the team. Plans he refused to tell the press. Newspaper headlines often use dashes in the same way, but for dramatic effect. A pair of dashes works in a similar way. The words that go between the dashes provide additional information. For example, if you take this sentence, Mr. and Mrs. Jones love to travel, despite their disability, and always bring us a present. The words within the 2 dashes give us information about Mr. and Mrs. Jones, which is in addition to the fact that they bring us presents from their travels. You could use commas around despite their disability, or you could even use brackets, but the use of dashes is more dramatic and is used to emphasise that the words within the dashes are important. Hopefully that all makes sense, but to see if you really understand it, try this. Drag the dash to where you think it should go in these sentences. When you're finished, click Done. No, I'm afraid you haven't quite got that right. In number 1, the dash comes after Venice because, I can understand why, provides an added thought. In number 2, you need a pair of dashes around with huge piercing eyes because it gives us additional but important information about the monster who wrecked everything in its path. The same goes for number 3. And finally, in number 4, the dash comes after hat because it provides added information about the cowboy's hat. Let's now see if all this is starting to make sense to you. Drag the check to the sentences which you think use dashes correctly and the X to sentences which do not. When you've finished, click Done. Yes, well done, that's right. Example 1 does not need a dash at all. It is simply a statement of fact. Exercise 2 does not need a dash either. The word and prepares us for additional information, so we don't need a dash as well. Numbers 3 and 4 are correct. The fact after the dash is separated from it, but adds information. Well,